Welcome back to My Cat Calling, the podcast for cat people by cat people. I'm Krista Moy. I'm a comedian, writer, designer, and cat mom to this golden bachelor, Prince Gary. Each week, we interview a cat caller and give their cat the spotlight they deserve. If you haven't yet, join our Pawdience. You can follow us everywhere on social at My Cat Calling and subscribe to our channels wherever you get your podcasts. We would very much love your support to help grow this indie podcast. If you know a cat lover in your life who might like what we're shedding out, share this episode with them. Spread the purd. This week, we have a truly amazing guest. She is a trusted pediatrician in Pasadena, California. She hosts the Run Mom Run podcast, a show that guides you through the joys and challenges of raising children from pregnancy all the way to adulthood. And I first found out about her podcast during a routine visit. She is my pediatrician and for my daughter, and she was just asking what I'm up to. And I hesitated at first. I was like, should I say something? And then I was like, you know what? Yeah, I started a cat podcast. And she was like, hang on a second, I'm going to show you my podcast room. And I learned that she also has a podcast. And it was just a really, really cool experience to be able to be really human with somebody that I'm normally in like professional mode with, and that I, wouldn't usually share, my creative projects with. But it was a good learning experience to remind me that, yeah, I should talk about my creative projects more and share this podcast with more people, because literally you never know. And I learned that she has a cat also, and then we exchanged our info and I was on her podcast, and now she is on My Cat Calling, which is so great. And it's something that would have never happened if I didn't step outside of my comfort zone and talk about what I'm working on with someone who normally I like keep it professional. So I'm really glad that I did that, and I'm really excited about this episode. It's so good, and it's so packed with so many gems and wisdom, and just great advice from a medical professional who's also a cat mom and a mom to two kids. So please enjoy this episode with Dr. Yuli talking about her cat, Mr. Nut.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is going to be fun.
Yes, thank you so much for being on the pod. This is very exciting. I've heard a lot about Mr. Nut. Have you always been a cat person?
So initially, I never thought of myself as a cat person, but I was just thinking about this, and I realized that, in fact, I am a cat person. And I can tell you why I think that, but
yes. Why did you not think that before?
Because I never grew up with pets. So I didn't think I was a cat or dog or pet person in general. And it was not until I was older, had my own house, that I actually got my first cat. Like, never grew up with pets in general, and definitely not cats.
Okay.
Just growing up.
So that wasn't like part of your identity.
I always thought that. But then I was just thinking about cats, and growing up when I was in grade school. So I was probably, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 years old. And I would walk home from school, and always the same route. And on my way home, there was a house, and outside their front porch, they had a basket, and inside were kittens, a lot of kittens. And there was a sign that said, free kittens. So I went over there and I picked up a kitten, and I'm just a young kid, picked up a kitten. I couldn't let go of the kitten. This is my kitten. And the woman, the homeowner, is like, yeah, you can take the kitten. It's yours. So I walked home with my kitten. But of course, I got home, and my parents right away, they're like, and initially I was trying to hide, but, as a little kid, I couldn't really hide for like a second. Finally, I showed my parents, like, oh, look, we have a kitten. And they were, they did not like that idea of us having a kitten. So I actually had to go back to the home and give it was so hard for me to do that.
Oh,
I had to go back. and give the
Oh,
kitten back to the homeowner, and she was very pleasant, she was very nice, very sweet, and, she probably
yeah.
understood, like, this little child brought home a
Sure.
kitten, and, parents said no. So that was my first experience with cats.
Wow, what a like that's a really impactful story. I think that do you think that that might have influenced you to be like, okay, that broke my heart too much? Like maybe I don't want to do that again until I know I can keep the kitten.
Right, that may I never really thought about it that way, but that may be part of it. I think that we go through our lives and things happen to us and we don't put them together, and then sometimes when we're older, we kinda think back and then it kinda makes sense. So it might be that might exactly be what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have a similar, well, a sort of similar story. A friend on this podcast shared she was in China and she found a kitten and like brought the kitten home and she was like crying about the how lovely the kitten was, just like very emotional about the cat. And her grandparents were like, "You're too emotional. You have to get rid of the cat. Like this is too much." Like you're making, this is we can't you
Mm,
can't carry on like this. And so she had to give put the cat outside, and ever since then she was like, I'm not a cat person. And
mm,
I was like,
mm,
that's really like a traumatic experience
yeah.
to have to like bond so quickly with a cat and then give it away.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think that may have happened to me without really realizing, you're a kid, you're
Yeah,
a child, you don't understand these things, and then you
sure.
just move on and with life, and then it's later on that, just thinking about these things like that must have been pretty impactful for a young child.
Yeah, absolutely. So then what was your first cat that you owned? Was it Mr. Nut?
No. So we had Onyx.
Okay.
My oldest son named our cat, and I had wanted a pet, and I thought, I think cats are beautiful. So I started to look and at the time, so now I'm an adult. I have two kids. My son was 6 at the time, and my daughter was 2 at the time. And I wanted them to grow up with pets.
Mm,
And I thought, I think that a cat would fit perfectly into our family. So I
yeah.
started to look, knowing that I had small children, I wanted a cat that could, live with children. So I started just looking for different types of cats. And I read about ragdolls. And
Mm,
I read that some people think that they're very much like, or very close to dogs in that they fetch. So if
yeah.
you teach your ragdoll how to fetch, they can fetch, and that you pick them up and they just kind of
Mm,
flop like ragdolls,
yeah.
and that they're really good with around children. And so I thought this is what I'm looking for. So we searched, found a ragdoll, brought our kitten home, and yeah, my kid. So that was our first cat. So Onyx was with us for about 16 years, and then
Mm,
he passed. This was a few years ago.
okay.
Yeah, so that was our first cat, and beautiful cat, and it was exactly as I had read about ragdolls. He was very friendly, very chill. He would walk up our daughter when we brought Onyx home, our daughter was 2, and she would
Mm.
sit on the floor, she would pick up the little cat, and then she'd go, "Wee." And
Oh,
so, kinda yeah, like
yeah.
with the cat would fly through the air. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah, not
huge.
far. Yeah.
No, and the cat would turn right back around and go right back to her so she could do it again, and so, yeah,
Yeah.
it was really fun.
Wow. So I've heard they're very affectionate
Yeah,
also,
they
ragdolls,
are.
is that they're like extremely like they want attention and they want to be held.
Well, yes, yeah. Onyx was not the kind of cat that would go and hide. If we were out in the living room, he would come out. He would wanna, sit by us or sit on our laps. Very friendly, lovely
Mhm.
cat, and my kids grew up with Onyx, and so
Mhm.
fast forward, now my kids are young adults and they have cats.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. And you kind of, I think introducing a a pet to a child at a young age is really influential in their like nurturing ability for I think all animals, like whether it be, getting a cat when they're older or maybe they want another pet. But I think that like has a lasting impact.
I think so. And looking back at my kids when they were younger and growing up, their personalities, my son and my daughter, their personality is very different. And I think the cat was really good for both of them, but especially, when one of my kids was maybe a little more anxious, a little more
Mm,
when he first met the cat, he was a little bit distant. He was kind of
okay.
there was some fear, but
Mm.
exposing him to the cat and him growing up with a cat, that helped him. I think, having Onyx, growing up with Onyx helped him with that fear, that anxiety. And again, like I said, now he has a cat now that he loves very much. And so I think it really did help him with his emotions,
Yeah.
regulation.
Definitely. Emotional regulation is so important for kids. And I think, there's something about like having a cat around, even like as an adult, when I'm feeling like anxious or, some kind of intense emotion, like I'll kind of look around and be like, where's my cat? Like I need to just like hold my cat. And, he kind of can reset my nervous system and my emotions in a way that, nothing else really can. So I think cats are really great teaching children that.
Absolutely, I think so. That's a very good point. Especially now, I mean, we live well, always, but we live in this society now where there's so much. We just went through COVID pandemic and
Mhm.
now with social media, the cases of, depression and anxiety just are going up.
Mhm.
And so having a pet, a cat that can help you with those emotions, I think it can be very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you meet Mr. Nut? Your
Mr.
current
Knight is
your current
now our current cat is his name is Mr. Nut, and he is pretty rambunctious. He's a different personality from Onyx.
Okay.
He's great, just a different personality. We brought him home about I think it's going to be 2 or 3 years ago,
Okay.
and he is from Cats and Comics. Have you ever heard of Cats and Comics Rescue?
No, I haven't, but I will look them up and I will link them in our show notes.
So Mr. Nut is from that rescue.
Okay.
My daughter heard of Cats and Comics, and I guess they have a store
Okay.
in Upland, California, and they
Like
sell
comic books? Is that what
comic
it is?
yes,
Okay.
exactly. So they have a store, they sell comic books, collectibles, a variety of things, and that's how they are able to support the cat rescue part.
Mhm.
And they would set up at farmers markets and
Mhm.
they would have or I think they still do they would live stream on Instagram. So my
Mhm.
daughter was following them and would, watch their reels and just, she was ready for a cat. So we
Mhm.
spoke to her like, okay, you're gonna be responsible. She's like, yep, okay, good. So she went out to the Cats and Comics rescue and they had a basket of kittens, a lot of
Wow, that's like full
yeah.
circle of your basket of kittens.
Yes, a basket of kittens, and so she's Mr. Nut, and at the time, his name was Chestnut, so
Uh-huh.
she met Chestnut. She loved he has a really long tail. He was tiny, really long tail, and she just loved his colors, and she looked at him and said, like she picked him up, and she couldn't let go. So he came home. So
Oh.
I met him for the first time at our house. So my daughter lives with us, so now we live all my daughter, Mr. Nut, and so then that's when I met him for the first time was at the house, and he looked like he's a beautiful cat. He's what is it? A gray. He's got hints of orange.
Is
He's a
it the calico? Is he calico
yes, and
or
he's got a white chest. That's one of the things about Mr. Nut is he has a very long tail. So we knew he was going to be a big cat, which he is. He has
okay.
grown quite a bit. He's a big cat, and yeah,
That's a great story. I love how you talk about your basket of kittens and you had to bring the cat back and then your daughter gets a cat from a basket of kittens. I just think I don't know, I just think there's something so like symbolic about that experience that you are like, "Yes, we can keep the kitten." And like, that's something that you were meant to experience to
Right.
allow almost like your inner child, maybe in a sense, to have a kitten from the basket. I don't know. Maybe I'm
That
projecting
is
that too much.
that is interesting. I hadn't really thought of it, but yes, you're absolutely right. I didn't put the connection together. Interesting.
Yeah, I like
That's
that's
right.
amazing to me. So, what was your experience like raising your children with your cat? You mentioned that your son kind of was standoffish at first. How was your daughter when you first brought Onyx home?
She was sometimes we call her the cat whisperer. She's really good with cats, pets in general. She's has a very calm energy about her, and she will gravitate like, if there's a pet in a home, whether it's a cat or a dog, she will gravitate to them. She will pick them up. I mean, she has picked up cats that the owners will say, "Oh, be careful," and they'll go to her. I don't know. She has a certain energy about her, but she's really good with cats. And then, of course, she sees a cat and she wants to go pick him up. So,
Mhm.
and maybe she was younger when we brought home our Onyx. She was 2,
Mhm.
so she pretty much grew up with a cat in the home.
Mm.
Maybe that, and my son was a little bit older and a little bit more reserved. So
Mhm.
maybe that was the difference, is that she was just younger and she doesn't know any other way but to have a cat around the house. And I must say that our cat was wonderful. Onyx was a great first cat to have with children. It was
Mm.
very gentle,
Okay.
but I think
So
that had a lot to do with it too.
did you have any challenges at all with your kids and just bring introducing a cat into the home?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Kids are kids and a toddler is a toddler and they're
Mhm.
curious. And so, having to be present when especially my young daughter, she was a toddler at the time. So being present when when the cat and my daughter were in the same room, just being there and monitoring and watching and then teaching her, how to behave around a cat, how to pet the cat, where to pet the cat,
Mm.
on his back, avoid the
Yeah.
tail, like
Pulling
that
the
kind of stuff.
tail is very tempting.
Exactly. And then having to repeat it, over and over. And then there was the thought like, okay, where are we gonna put the litter box so that because children, they're gonna get into the litter box, even if you tell them like, don't do if there's a litter box and there's a child, the chances are that the child will go
Mhm.
and, be curious and see what's going on there.
Yeah.
So having to figure out where to put the litter box so that the litter box is over here and the child is over here. And, just to think logistical things like that. Or
Mhm.
I remember having to think about those things. Yeah, but that was, I think, yeah, just keeping everyone safe was
Yeah.
top of mind to me. Because even though our cat was a great cat, very friendly, when a cat is scared, they're gonna
Mhm.
protect themselves. And so protecting themselves may mean scratching or
Yeah.
biting, or so just being cautious, being aware of those things, and making sure that everyone was safe, not only the cat safe from our daughter, but
Yeah.
our kids safe from the cat as well. That was important.
It's interesting. My daughter's like starting to crawl and the other day she was going straight toward the litter box and I was thinking like, "Oh man, this is very sandbox like for for a child." And I never
Absolutely.
really like thought about that as something she would be attracted to, but yeah, she like went right for it. And I was like, "No, no, 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 no." So, yeah, that's definitely things like the litter box are definitely a challenge with a young child that doesn't really know.
Yeah, they're curious. They want to know what that is.
Yeah,
And then,
definitely.
everything goes in the mouth.
Everything in the mouth.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, those are definitely things that went through my mind and things that we worked at. And I remember, moving the litter box from, okay, this place is not going to work. We got to find a new place, and just kind of just arranging the house so that everyone was
Mhm.
safe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important. And I'm sure that stuff kind of came up as you went along, like, you can't really, like, prepare for that 100% before you introduce the cat.
Right.
Do you think that it's as important to partner with a trusted vet for your cat in the same way that you would partner with a trusted pediatrician?
Absolutely. So we
Okay.
moved a few times, and so we had to look for a new vet several times.
Yeah.
But finding a vet that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, I think is so important.
Mhm.
Just someone that you know that will guide you well with your pet, I think is so important. And
Mhm.
sometimes, it's we've met lots of different vets, and there were some that something in me told me like this is the right vet for our family.
Mm.
And then just being able to trust them, go back to them, I think that is very important.
Yeah, I agree that that's something that I have really valued as a, long-time cat owner, that kind of knowing that experience with my own cat and my vet and finding a good vet versus having a vet that I'm not so happy with, it kind of mimics what I was looking for in a pediatrician as well as when I became a new mom. There's something so invaluable about a pediatrician and a veterinarian that you can trust. I think that's like a very important tool
Mm.
in your parenting and pet ownership journey.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you have any advice for parents who may have small children as well as cats or maybe introducing a new cat into the home?
Yes. So we kind of mentioned a little bit about the litter box. So infections
Yes.
is one thing that I think about. And thinking about those things, children are children. They're curious. They like to, pick things up, put them on their mouths, as we were talking about earlier. So having a litter box, for example, in this case, where the cat has access to it, but your child does not have access. I mean, you really, parents, we're so busy, we're doing lots of different things. And the last thing I would want to worry about is making sure that my child doesn't get into the litter box and get an
Mhm.
infection. There's, roundworm, pregnant.
Have heard that if you're breastfeeding, like I haven't been scooping the litter box as I'm nursing because
Yeah.
of the possible infection that yeah, when you're nursing. I don't know how much exposure it really gives you if you're only breastfeeding, but I'm playing it on the safe side and
I think that's very smart. I think it's best
yeah.
because there are, toxoplasmosis,
Yeah.
roundworms, and you can be very careful, wash your hands, but
Yeah.
it can be sneaky sometimes. So I think it's
Yeah.
sometimes just better to be safe
Exactly.
and avoid cleaning the litter box while you're pregnant or breastfeeding. And then, so yeah, so infections and then washing your child's hands after they pet a cat is a good idea as
Yeah,
well.
that's a good one.
And then, of course, injuries. You want to be careful with injuries. I've heard this in my practice before, like, "Oh, my cat or my pet would never hurt my child." And that's true. There are some wonderful cats that are
Mhm.
great, like phonics,
Yeah.
but they're still, they will react. It's
Yeah.
like an instinct. And so being being conscious of that, always supervising your child when the cat is present, I think is important. It just takes an instant where a cat fears for their lives so
Yeah.
they can react. So make sure that if your child is there, like looking at the cat, making sure that the cat has an escape. They're not trapped in the corner with your child there.
Yeah.
That's when it can become dangerous for your child.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you want to think about injury. So, infections, injuries, newborns when they're sleeping. It's very rare but, cats love warmth. And so, sleeping, and I guess it
Mhm.
has happened in the past, but it's extremely rare that a baby would
Mhm.
suffocate from a cat sleeping on top of the baby's face or something
Mhm.
like that. But the risk is there.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not something that we see.
Mhm.
Keeping your sleeping, baby newborn separate where the cat can't accidentally jump into the crib or into the bassinet
Yeah.
to sleep with the baby, that being conscious of that,
Yeah.
I think is important. And yeah, I think just being aware of those things.
Mhm.
It's important.
Yeah, and you mentioned like teaching your child how to properly handle the cat, I think is a really important thing as well, like how to properly pick up the cat because like you mentioned maybe the cat has a very docile personality and isn't going to scratch them on purpose, but if the cat is picked up in a way that's uncomfortable, like even when I pick up Prince, like he'll put his claws out if he's falling or if he's uncomfortable, if he doesn't want to be picked up and he's not intentionally trying to hurt me, but it hurt, his claws will come out and I can feel it and it hurts. So I can imagine if a child were to do that,
Right.
it could be very
Yeah, I mean,
painful.
in general, it's good to like have a house rule. We don't pick up the cat.
Mhm.
Maybe once the child is older than 5,
Yeah.
it and the child knows how to handle the cat, maybe that would be
Mhm.
okay. But a younger, like a toddler, it's better
Yeah.
just to avoid picking up a cat because yeah, they can be great cats, but anything can happen, and it just takes a second for something to go south.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And I should add, I don't know if many people know this, but a bite from a cat can get infected really quickly. So if
Mm,
there is ever a bite, it's best to get medical attention to that because
okay.
sometimes with a bite, you can't, it's like a puncture wound. You can't really see it. Doesn't look too bad, but
Yeah.
it can get infected really quickly. So it's always a good idea to get medical help, talk to your doctor, even if it's a
Mhm.
call to your doctor. But cat bites can be dangerous and it can happen pretty quickly,
Mhm.
an infection. So that is something to be aware of. Everybody should definitely be aware of that. Be cautious with
Yeah, I've heard that also like their scratches can get infected too. I've heard a story of somebody having to go to the urgent care after their hand was scratched so badly.
yes, infections can be a problem.
I don't know if that's cat scratch fever. I'm not sure exactly what cat scratch fever is, but it might be related.
So there's a infection from a cat bite. It's a puncture wound, and cats have a lot of bacteria in their mouths. And so then whenever there's a bite, like a break through the skin, there's a very high risk of your skin getting infected. And so you may need antibiotics.
Oh, okay.
And that's one thing. And then there's cat scratch disease where there's a cat can scratch. There's an organism that can get in through like a cat scratch, and then it causes lymph nodes to enlarge. And there
Okay.
is treatment for that. So, and sometimes if you have enlarged lymph nodes and you have a cat, but you don't remember a cat scratch, you can still have that. There's a blood test that you can do to
Mm,
tell if you're infected with the cat scratch disease.
okay.
And there's this very specific treatment for that. So yeah, I mean, lymph nodes, and you have a cat, it's probably a good idea to get it checked out. So your lymph nodes would be like here,
Mm,
they get big, and
okay. So how long
something.
after the cat scratch does that typically?
It could be weeks. And some people have had cat scratch disease with no history of getting scratched. So
Oh, wow.
just something to think about.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so, like, if you have the cat scratch disease and if you ask, like, "Do you remember getting scratched by a cat?" And sometimes people will say, "No, my cat never has scratched me," but we do the test and it's positive. So, just something
Wow.
to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all really great advice. So, where can people find out more about your pediatrician practice or how to listen to your podcast?
I do have a podcast, so and everybody should come out and listen because you were my guest.
Yes.
That was wonderful. So thank you for doing that. But I have a podcast called Run Mom Run, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And if you just search Run Mom Run, you should be able to find it.
Okay.
And then I also have my website, yulimd.com, and there's information about my practice there.
Okay. That's so great. Well, everyone go listen to Run
Run
Mom
Mom.
Run.
Absolutely. Definitely take a listen.
There's a lot of really great tips in there for just all of any kind of parenting advice that you would need. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and
Thank
sharing
you.
all of your wisdom and your amazing stories of Mr. Nut. If anyone's looking for a pediatrician that is also a cat lover.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Well, that wraps up our show for today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our guest, Dr. Yuli, for joining us today. You can stalk us on all social platforms at My Cat Calling, and you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. If you liked anything about the show today, even if it was just Prince Gary, you can show your support for our indie podcast by subscribing to our channel, or leaving us a comment, or sharing this episode with the cat lover in your life. Thanks for listening. We love you.